Yo, what is up, you guys? Barokoshama here with another Elemental Shaman video. This one is the leveling guide for both Enhance and Elemental. I've been gathering a lot of information for the last couple days, and I really wanted to put together a good guide so that you guys can follow some nifty information, see what really best suits you as far as leveling styles, and then understanding some good tips and tricks on how you can level faster in those styles, along with talent compositions, what things you need to look out for when you're leveling, the abilities that you want to kind of just combine together and decimate your enemies with the power of the elements. So this video is going to cover a lot of different things, so if you guys want to skip ahead to Enhance or just stay here on the first part of Elemental, I'll put the timestamps in the description down below so you guys can get that going. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright guys, so starting off with the Elemental spec and talents that we want to kind of use while we're leveling and which ones are really going to be effective. Disclaimer though, everything is subject to change as the expansion goes on, so as of this video is coming out on August 8th, things may be changed in the future, so definitely look up other sources of information to really get what you're looking for in that case. So as far as the talents go, these talents that I have set up here tend to be really good while leveling. This is both for personal opinion as well as some research that I've been going around asking the community, looking at various other websites like Storm, Earth and Lava, Icy Veins, and kind of comparing which ones are really good, but also new things that are coming up or new information that's coming up, such as the viability of the liquid magma totem being exceptionally strong in leveling situations and low item level or low level scenarios. When it comes to leveling, Echo the Elements is kind of the go-to choice here because you're not really going to be effectively using the debuff of exposed elements whenever you Earthshock a target. It's most likely not going to last very long. Elemental Blast can be used, but it's pretty much personal choice here. Whatever you want to choose for that is up to you. Echo the Elements kind of just plays into the next tier a lot better though. Master the Elements, your next casting a lava burst increases the damage of your next frost or nature spell by 20%. Again, while you're leveling, Aftershock isn't as good in the early levels because we're already using the Deceiver's Blood Pack boots. If you don't have these, maybe pick up Aftershock instead. But as far as totem mastery goes, it's kind of annoying to be placing down these totems every time you enter combat. That's again personal preference. So I go with Mastery Elements to complement Echo the Elements. Moving on. Earth Shield, very good self-sustain. You can also go with Spirit Wolf if you tend to be in Ghost Wolf a lot more and like the extra added movement speed, but Earth Shield does actually help a lot more while you're face tanking mobs or big pulls. You can definitely take advantage of this a lot more. Static Charge doesn't really have a place in leveling as the other two kind of outweigh it a lot more. Moving on to the tier 60 talent tree, Liquid Magma Totem actually doing quite a lot of damage. I'm going to be showcasing everything in action later on in the video, but Liquid Magma Totem is actually surprisingly very good, especially if you tend to like the style of leveling, which is pull big packs, then melt everything down with a few of your spells, right? You can also go high voltage or storm elemental. This is personal preference, but performance-wise, Liquid Magma Totem is the best one out of the three. Nature's Guardian on the tier 75. This is kind of like a no-brainer. You can go Ancestral Guidance, but Nature's Guardian does proc a lot more because it has a 45% chance or 45-second cooldown, and every time that you drop below health within those 45-second internal cooldown, you're actually going to increase your health by 20%. This is really good, especially for soloing content, like I said, because it can save your ass on multiple occasions. Moving on. Earth and Rage, it's kind of boring, doesn't really play into effect very well in a leveling situation. Primal Elementalist making things a little bit better for you because you actually get an extra 40% damage reduction with your Earth Elemental, and it makes it a lot more tanky, so definitely very useful for your Earth Elemental. And your Fire Elemental getting an added damage bonus as well as an additional ability called Meteor. Meteor sends down a huge nuke the target. This is an AoE splash damage, and it can actually do quite a lot of damage if you have your other cooldowns not available, like Liquid Magma Totem or Storm Keeper, or even like Counter-Strike Totem. So this is actually going to be really good for you. Ice Fury, I only really see this being viable after it's been tuned. Currently in leveling, I think Primal Mentalist just really pulls ahead of everything else. And lastly, the 100 tier. This is all personal preference. If you have a leveling style that you want to kind of just not really pull big, but one thing at a time, but then you want that extra cooldown in case you face a really hard enemy, Ascendance might be good for you. If you want to always be pulling big packs, really leveling a lot quicker, or tend to like this extra ability, Stormkeeper could be good for you. But if you want something like in between, something mundane, not really extra buttons to press, you know, maybe Unlimited Powers is the best for you. Personally, I like Stormkeeper because my style of leveling is pulling large packs and then AoEing everything down pretty quickly. Now that we've covered talents, let's move on to PvP talents. If you're going to be leveling in War mode, I recommend doing it. I like doing it. It's an extra XP boost, as well as later on you get extra like currencies and resources and stuff if you're doing world quests in War mode. The talents that I find to be the best for this, with what limited abilities we have to go with, we'll talk about that. Gladiator's Medallion, this can actually even help you out in the world if like an ad that you're fighting puts you to sleep or stuns you or something, and you're kind of low health, you got to get away. Gladiator's Medallion, as long as you keybind it or have it readily available for you, can save your ass. This coupled with like, I don't know, a slow totem or a knockback just to get things away for you can be very beneficial. When we're talking about your next, the three ones that I use are Sky Fury, Counter Strike, and Swelling Waves. Swelling Waves is kind of a no-brainer. It's a hugely added healing bonus that every time you cast your Healing Surge on yourself, you are healed for 50% of the amount 3 seconds later. This can be very, very useful. We're not able to cast a lot of Healing Surges, maybe 5 at most, after you've already gained some mana. So 4 right from max mana down, and then the 5th one. So we're very limited on the self-healing that we can do. We can't just stand there and constantly spam this, right? So we go very quickly. So that extra added heal from your Swelling Waves is going to be able to allow you to survive a lot more, allow you to keep your mana, because you maybe only need 2 out of those 4 healing surges now to really keep yourself from dying. Counter-Strike Totem. This one, you're not going to see it being extremely useful in the earlier levels. As you level up, as your stats tend to diminish because of the way that the level scaling works with your gear, if you're coming straight out of raiding, Counter-Strike Totem you're going to see become a lot more useful. I'll show you guys exactly how you can benefit from using this in a large pack situation, but also if you're leveling in War mode and you get ganked, this is that extra little oomph that can help you destroy your enemies that are trying to kill you. So moving on from that, Sky Fury Totem. This is kind of like another one of those abilities that really allow you to push a little bit more extra damage. You're not going to see it really that useful in the earlier levels because your abilities are just scaling out of control. But Sky Fury Totem later can actually push your damage and allow you to clear those trash packs a lot faster by 20% added extra damage on your critical effects, right? So this can be very useful later in levels and early levels if you're out of abilities or if your cooldowns are on or are going, right? You don't really have anything else. You can use Sky Fury to amp your damage up a little bit more. So now that we've talked about talents, let's move on to how you're going to be using these talent setups and how effectively you can quest and kill mobs. All right, guys, so this is the second part of the elemental situation. I don't know. I forgot to mention in the first part of the elemental part of the leveling guide that the legendaries that I use for elemental are the Deceiver's Bloodpack Boots and the Echoes of the Great Sundering. With elemental, I find that it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, you can use Seifu's Secret for that extra movement speed, or even like the leveling gloves that I mentioned in the enhance section for like those extra movement speed bonuses, right? Because you're going to be putting down earthquakes, you could be CCing targets. So maybe this is personal preference, I guess, for the legendaries that you use. But as far as like the talents go in the talent situation, the way that I want to showcase like a big pull is as followed. Like we'll just pull everything here, make sure I have Earth Shield on, and I'm going to be showcasing like different ways to level. So you see Liquid Magma Totems out, Stormkeeper, big trash pulls, earthquakes, everything dies. Now, let's talk about the damage breakdown, because you saw that I did a few things there. You were seeing a bunch of numbers, but you weren't really seeing where it was coming from, right? Let's kill this thing really quickly, because it was probably going to get pulled anyway. And I'm utilizing very specific talents and abilities. So let's talk about... here. This is where it is. I use Stormkeeper specifically because it allows me to do a bunch of AoE, but at the same time, build up a bunch of Maelstrom and then put those Earthquakes down, right? Liquid Magma Totem is probably the best. The best talent for AoE. It lasts an extremely long time. I mean, I did only cast 2 Chain Lightnings with those overloads, right? So Stormkeeper is very, very good for big trash pulls, but you're going to see Liquid Magma Totem doing a crap ton of damage. And then Counter-Strike, like I said in the first part of the Elemental section, Counter-Strike, you're going to be seeing a lot more of this being more beneficial in later levels. But at the same time, if you don't have all of your AoE cooldowns up, Counter-Strike Totem is that extra oomph. It's going to be the one to allow you to clear mobs very quickly. And if I go to current target, if we only pull 2 mobs at a time, Counter-Strike Totem is going to be very, very strong as well. You see I place it down. Oops, this isn't... There we go. Hello? There we go. You're going to be seeing that it does quite a lot of damage, allowing your enemies to just essentially KYS, right? So if it's more about your style to just pull 1 mob, 2 mobs at a time, Counter-Strike Totem is really, really beneficial in that situation. If I just pull 1 mob and allow it to essentially kill itself... Oh, it's not off cooldown yet. So I'll do it to the next one. Again, my stats are really inflated because I have Radiant Gear, right? And I also have Heart of the Azeroth, and I have one of the Azerite pieces starting out here. You're going to be doing that as well. If you're doing 1 mob pull targets, or 2, right? Again, Echo the Elements, allowing you to really do quite a lot. And then Earthshock. You're seeing Earthshock is killing targets really, really quickly. So again, like I said in the first part of it, Exposed Elements really is not going to be very beneficial while leveling. So I'll just actually put down this Counter-Strike Totem, allow him to essentially KYS, and you'll see Counter-Strike Totem actually doing quite a lot of damage. It did 9k damage. Flame Shock doing the 6.3k damage. So if it's your piece of cake to want to pull 1 to 2 mobs at a time, Counter-Strike Totem can be very, very beneficial. Again, later in leveling, Sky Fury Totem is going to be able to pull ahead in usefulness, because your stats are going to be squishing. They're going to be, what's the word for it? Jesus. Scaling down. There we go. So Sky Fury adding an additional flat 20% on your crits. Your Lava Burst always critting, right? So you do the math, it's going to be able to allow you to do a little bit more, find it a lot more useful. So if I just do Lava Burst here, and they're elemental overloading, like I did 3 Lava Burst casts there. That was enough to kill that mob. That was nice, right? Sky Fury Totem allowing you to do an additional 20% healing as well. So if your healing surge is crit, really good sustained healing as well. So I really wanted to showcase different ways of also pulling big trash packs. You have a lot in your toolkit. You're not really... you're not just dependent on certain cooldowns. You have a lot in your toolkit to be able to pull these big trash packs. You just see that I used Earth Elemental, right? And now everything's attacking the Earth Elemental. Well, Counter-Strike Totem is also working with that and allowing them to kill themselves again. You have a lot in your toolkit to be able to effectively pull big trash packs. If I had enough in here to pull, I don't know, like 13, 14. In fact, I could probably go back up and pull much bigger trash packs and show you guys just how effective it is to be able to level big pulls. You could probably actually pull bigger trash packs with Elemental than you can with Enhancement. And the main reason for that is the sheer amount of AoE cooldowns that you have. Yes, with Enhancement, you have Sundering, which is a huge nuke for AoE, right? And that's really going to tilt you in allowing you to clear trash packs maybe a little bit faster than Enhancement, especially if you can keep yourself alive. Pulling like 10 to 15 group mobs, right? If you can keep yourself alive in that situation, that's going to be really good. But if it's like sustained, like 10 to 15 trash pack pulls within quick succession of each other, maybe Elemental pulls ahead. So let's just get these guys all packed up here. We'll pull more. I'll start healing myself. Let's interrupt this guy so he comes over. Okay. And then I fire Elemental. Put that down. You'll also see that I use it in Meteor there too, eh? So you have the capabilities of pulling quite a lot of trash. Then just nuking them all down. Again, Enhance can do this as well, but in certain different ways. If the good thing about this talent build as well is if your style of questing is just 1 to 2 mobs at a time, that's completely fine. That's completely fine. You're probably still going to be using the same talent setup. Maybe not in the 100 tree if you prefer Ascendance for like those big mobs. The rare spawns and stuff like that, you prefer something along those lines. Liquid Magma Totem is still one of the best talents on this tier. It's still probably one of the best talents on this tier. Even though I didn't use it in this situation, you're going to find it do a lot of damage, even on single target, especially if the ad doesn't move, right? So why don't we move on to the enhancement section of the video so that you guys can get a little bit more information of how you're going to be pulling mobs in the enhancement spec, as well as like kind of tips on how to effectively deal a bunch of damage as well as pulling a large amount of packs. So let's move on to that section. Alright guys, moving on to the enhancement section of the Shaman leveling guide video. We're going to be talking here, just like at the start of the video with Elemental, what talents, kind of gear, stuff like that. A little bit of tips and tricks on how you can make your leveling process as an enhancement Shaman a little bit better and a little more informative. So let's start off with talents. Number 15 talent tree, Lightning Shield being the best one here, simply because it's a passive also that you can just kind of forget. And then your melee attacks have a chance to suffer 96 nature damage, melee attackers, so people attacking you. So it's kind of like Counter-Strike Totem in the sense that it reflects damage, which is really good if you're pulling multiple mobs. You're adding that extra cleave damage onto those mobs, right? And add a charge to your shield. When you Storm Strike, it gains 2 charge. So whenever enemies attack you, you gain a charge. Whenever you Storm Strike, you gain 2 charges. If you're pulling multiple enemies, you're going to be gaining these charges relatively quickly. And then at 20 charges, the shield overcharges, causing you to deal 160 nature damage with each attack and generate 100 Maelstrom over 10 seconds. This plays really, really well into your cleave. So we'll keep that in mind as we move on here. I have the Soul of the Farseer Legendary, which gives me Landslide and Forceful Winds. And I use Seifu's Secret because whenever I Sunder, or if I'm interrupting a target, or if I'm putting down a cap totem or something, right? Whenever I CC a target, which I'm going to be doing while I'm leveling, this procs, and it gives me a crap ton of haste and movement speed. So I'm really, really excited about testing that and putting that forward into the enhancement. But since I'm using Soul of the Farseer, I get Landslide. Rockbiter has a 20% chance to increase the damage of your next Storm Strike by 100%. That's okay. That's nice. Forceful Winds. Wind Fury causes each successive Wind Fury attack within 15 seconds to increase the damage of Wind Fury by 100%, and the Maelstrom generated by 1, stacking up to 5 times. When your Lightning Shield procs at 20 stacks, and then your Wind Fury is going as well, you're attacking multiple times, you're getting out those extra little nature damage from your Lightning Shield. Like, these play into pretty well together. This is a much better, I think, passive than Totem Mastery. Again, being an annoyance, kind of having to put this down every time you enter combat or whenever you're out of range. I find that Forceful Winds and even Landslide is better than that. Moving on to your survivability and utility. Earth Shield, again, we mentioned this in the Elemental section. If you're pulling big mobs, that prolongs your survivability, of course. And if multiple targets are hitting you at the same time, Earth Shield is proccing more. It actually goes a long way. It's quite a lot of healing over time. 60 talent tier. Searing Assault. Flame Tongue now causes the target to burn for 1,440 damage over 6 seconds. Hailstorm. We're not really using Frostbrand, so Hailstorm is kind of not really as good. And then Overcharge, of course. Lightning Bolt now consumes up to 40 Maelstrom for up to 1,200 increased damage, but has a 9.3 second cooldown. I'm going to put a quick kind of like disclaimer with Overcharge. When you're pulling big packs or you're pulling targets from ranged, Lightning Bolt's actually really useful in that, because you're not really slowing the target, you're not using Maelstrom in order to pull the ad, and you're not really using mana, right? That mana can be used to help you heal, so purging targets are okay as well, but it uses up a lot of mana. So having that choice of pulling mobs, multiple mobs with just Lightning Bolt alone, just to gather them all up and then AoE them down, I find this a lot more superior and useful than running Overcharge. Also, Searing Assault, you're going to be dumping a lot of Maelstrom with Lava Lash, right? So if you're changing targets every time you Lava Lash in your cleave rotation, Searing Assault tends to be a little bit better when it comes to that. And then, of course, I mentioned this before, but Hailstorm, we're not really using Frostbrand. We use it as like a defensive or like a way to slow our target to get away from them. But other than that, we don't really find it more useful than Searing Assault. Anyway, moving on to tier 75, Nature's Guardian. This was something that we talked about as well in our Elemental section. Nature's Guardian can save your ass on multiple occasions. It's got a short 45-second internal cooldown. If you really like the mobility, I see people using Feral Lunge while leveling, but after you've gotten to your target, it really doesn't have a use. It does a low amount of damage, so it just really looks cool and it allows you to gap close. I would see this being maybe used in arenas or some BGs or even some Mythic Plus in the future, just to chase after targets or something like that, right? But Nature's Guardian tends to be the go-to because of the extra added survivability. Shamans being well known for not really being able to survive long enough, this is a huge deal. Wind Rush Totem. This would only really be used in raid situations. Moving on to 90, Sundering. It's so good, honestly. It is so good, but I'll showcase that later on in the video. Sundering does so much damage, and this is your bread and butter when you're pulling big packs. You're going to use this, line yourself up so that it hits pretty much all the targets that you've pulled, and you'll see them drop dramatically, especially in the earlier levels. Past level 115, 116, you're going to see this a lot less damage in conjunction to the percentage of health that it did before in your earlier levels. But earlier on, it does so much damage. You really want to be utilizing this. Moving on to tier 100, Earth and Spike, not really conducive to what you're trying to do with your Enhancement Shaman while leveling. It's a nice cooldown maybe in raiding, short cooldown as a burst period, right? But you're not really going to be doing a lot of single target pulls where this is going to be beneficial, where the debuff on the target is going to be really beneficial and utilized. Ascendance, if you want to use it for killing big ads like those rare spawns or something, that can be done, right? But Elemental Spirits essentially is roll the bones, and if you get some really good RNG, you can be doing some crazy damage with the buffs that you get from this. So I got 2 Fire Dogs, increasing all fire damage dealt by 20%, and Lava Lashes now cause the target to burn for an additional 35% of the direct damage done over 4 seconds. This also stacking with Searing Assault. That's the Fire Dog. If I had more, I would show you guys some more wolves, but the lightning one is so damn good. If you guys want to look up the effects, I highly recommend it. I should have told you on this, but let's move on to PvP talents. I mentioned this in Elemental, so I won't really go into depth as to why War Mode is so good, but as far as like what the talents for PvP options are, there's some really good ones for Enhance. Gladiator's Medallion really giving you that extra kind of like escape, especially in if you get ganked or see some world PvP, that can be useful. Ride the Lightning. When you Storm Strike, you also cast a Chain Lightning on your target. Chain Lightning hurls a lightning bolt at an enemy, dealing 1011 nature damage, and then jumping to an additional nearby enemies, affecting 3 total targets. This is really strong. This is very, very strong. In fact, I wish this was a talent on our actual talent tree because it's super cool to see. Really emphasizes our AoE potential, and sadly is only limited to PvP talents. But you'll actually see a huge difference if you use this talent. Chain Lightning does a lot of damage, especially in big pack situations. Now, Forked Lightning. When you use Storm Strike, you conjure bolts of lightning up to 2 furthest enemies within 40 yards, dealing 948 nature damage. Again, this is like that added cleave, something that Enhanced Shaman is known to kind of be good at, but not have a lot of AoE potential, right? This allows you to have that extra AoE oomph or cleave damage that can really affect how fast you clear targets and mobs. Moving into Swelling Waves. Again, we talked about this talent in the Elemental section. It's really, really strong, especially because your healing surges when you have Maelstrom are instant cast. Look, instant cast. And then you'll see the added healing surge a few moments later. You'll see the one, there's the one, and then there's the other one 3 seconds later, right? So having this as an instant cast healing surge, and then you get healed for 50% of that instant healing 3 seconds later, it's very, very strong. In fact, Swelling Waves on Enhance is a lot stronger than Elemental, obviously because you can use it instantly. So we've talked about talents, we talked a little bit about gear and what you should be running with that. Now let's move into the actual section of playstyles, leveling styles. Alright guys, so now we are in the enhancement portion of the video. You're going to see that I'm spec'd into enhancement. I have my Seifu Secret Soul of Farseer legendaries, but Seifu Secret is very, very good for enhancement. I'm going to be pulling a lot of mobs here. Hopefully I don't get dismounted. And then I'll show you guys exactly how you can really destroy a bunch of packs. Okay, ready? Ready? There they are, and there's Forked Lightning. You're going to see that going off as well. But you see Sundering did actually quite a lot of damage. These are a little bit more spread out than I would have liked, but you're still able to... Yeah, Sundering's your friend, honestly. It does so much damage. It utterly destroyed that pack. So, again, my stats are really inflated. When we're talking about talents and utilization for different abilities, you can use different talents, but like I said, on the 90 tier, Sundering is utterly ridiculous. I got this information from a lot of different sources, but mainly Kana from Method showed me how well this damage ability is while leveling. If you're even just pulling one mob at a time, if you're not comfortable with really pulling big trash packs or big mob counts like that, that's okay too, because you're still probably going to be using the same talent setup. Sundering just does so much damage, and you saw it there that it didn't even hit all the mobs, but it utterly destroyed the ones that it did. If we go back to that little... Okay, you know what? Let's that's enemy nameplates. There we go. If I show you guys the amount of damage it does for one mob, that was what, 75% of its health pool on one mob, doing 42% of my damage. Oh, I guess that was actually 42% of the health. If I pull like multiple mobs, 2, 3, that's really easy to do. You have self-sustain with Earth Shield. You have self-sustain as well with Healing Surge being instant cast as long as you have Maelstrom available, and then also Swelling Waves healing you 3 seconds later. If I'm pulling multiple mobs here, also you're going to see I'm using Lightning Bolt to not waste resources. Then I just bring them all here. Right, it does a lot of damage. Again, I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but let's move on to what essentially you're going to be doing at later levels. Later levels, you're maybe not going to be able to actually pull a lot of mobs like you can right off the start. Later levels, maybe 4, 5 at max. I'm talking like 116, 117, when you don't have all the stats that you currently have. When your stats aren't inflated, everything's kind of down. I don't have an example of that because this is a fresh copied character, but you're going to notice that you're not going to be able to pull as much. And that's okay, because that's the design of the game. A lot of other classes are in the same boat, except for really tank classes that can always do so those huge pulls and self-sustain. We're not in that boat. So you're still going to be using the same talent setup. Again, Ride the Lightning, still being able to do quite a lot of damage. You see the Chain Lightning there, hit twice, and it did 2.5k damage. As well as Forked Lightning. I don't know if I have an example of that here. Maybe not. Sundering still does a crap ton of damage. So when you're just facing off at later levels, this is the same way with Elemental, except Elemental has a little bit of better time because you have, at later levels I mean, you can still pull big trash packs. Even with Enhancement, you have an Earth Ellie, right? You have an Earth Ellie, so I'll just pull all this. I'll pull all this stuff, and I'll show you guys that you can still utilize the same tactics that Elemental uses. And that's using your Earth Elemental. You stack everything all up. Done it if you want. Sundering. Crash Lightnings, stuff like that, right? Storm Strikes on procs. You have something still to tank for you, which is really great. A lot of classes don't have that. Maybe if you're a Shadow Priest, you have to run around and dot everything, and then you can't maybe pull as much as a Shaman, right? You still have capabilities at later levels with greater Earth Elemental, with the amount of CC and cutting that you can still do with your totems, Earthbind Totem, and Capacitor. So if you're really comfortable with still pulling big trash packs, it can be done, but you're going to notice a difference as you level up. Anyway, we've talked a lot about ways that you can play your class effectively and in leveling up for both Elemental and Enhancement. If you guys want to see more videos like this, definitely drop a subscription on the YouTube channel. And if you like the video, like it. If you really want to help me out, obviously comment. YouTube loves that chat interaction. But even if you guys want to check out also my Twitch, where I live stream, in fact, I was live streaming while creating this video. I'll be leaving the link to my Twitch page in the description down below. Also, links to my social medias. But also, if you want to take that an even step further, you can support me on Patreon. I'll be leaving the link to that in the description down below as well. Anyway, guys, it's been a real pleasure. I can't wait to get out more Elemental Shaman content, as well as maybe even dabbling into some Enhancement if you guys really want to see that kind of stuff. So I really want to put out a lot more content in the future. So if you guys really like the content, again, all that stuff, I'll see you guys next time. Take care, keep calm, and Maelstrom on. Peace.